18 months, the British Steel Corporation has made 70,000 workers redundant. 4,000 of these were in one County Durham town. This is the story of how Consett and its people have fared in the first year after the blast.
We, the Consett Steelworkers, bitterly resent the wrong and unjustifiable closure of our works. We recognize, however, that we have exhausted all orthodox means of opposing the closure decision. We now wish to open negotiations with the corporation.
On September the 4th, 1980, the steelworkers of Consett accepted what they'd come to regard as inevitable. At a mass meeting, they voted to end their fight against closure and negotiate instead the best possible compensation for the loss of their jobs.
It's difficult to explain how you feel when you put a resolution to your own members, people you work with, for them to vote on whether to continue an industry that's been part of this area since as long as anyone can ever remember. It's very heart-rending. Today we saw a vote that will end a tradition in Derwentshire. Steelmaking has always been here.
And our message can be no other than this. You can trim your labour force. You can increase your productivity. You can be profitable. But none of it has any bearing on your future. Politicians, employees will tell you what has to be done to save your job. And sadly, by going the responsible route, by conducting ourselves in an orderly, responsible manner, we have met the full brunt of that bloody promise.
Looking back now, we feel that it was a political decision to close Consett. Whether we should have supported our argument with some sort of more direct action, taken to the streets, for example, like they did in France. One is only can reflect on that now. Whether we'd have been successful taking that route or not remains unanswered.
Now British Steel wasted no time. Only 8 days later came the ceremonial last rites, when the final batch of steel was poured, ending a tradition that stretched back to 1840.
I took the first sample here. I prepared it. I prepared the last one there. Consett Iron Company was really no worse than anywhere else. I'd hoped to settle there till I was 65. And I'm really sorry for the youngsters because things must be really desperate for them, you know. There's nothing really here.
Dear Mr. Carney, I regret to inform you that as a result of the cessation of operations at Consett Works, your employment will terminate by reason of redundancy in accordance with the attached formal notice, which gives your period of notice entitlement. Thank you for your service to Consett Works, and please accept my good wishes for the future. Yours sincerely.
I'll see you soon. See you, Nate.
Martin Carney had been a steelmaker for 44 years. His eldest son, Tom, like his other two sons, had also worked for the company on and off since leaving school. Now, like 4,000 others, they received a brief, photocopied notice tucked inside their last pay packets.
Yeah, there's petrol somewhere.
So, when do you finish all together?
Wow! You're going to get your burger.
Was that your last shift?
8 weeks, no, go out tomorrow morning again. If I want to go out tomorrow morning.
And that's still off for the...
That's been left for 8 weeks.
8 weeks. All right.
At first, it all seemed a bit like a holiday. The prospect of unlimited leisure. The chance to pursue weekend hobbies all day and every day. For a while, there was even a faint hope that the steelworks might yet be saved. A mysterious consortium of northeast businessmen expressed an interest in taking it over. British Steel gave them a deadline to come up with a concrete offer. But already the works was being stripped. Anything that could conceivably be of use was packed up and shipped off to other outposts of British Steel's ailing empire, from ingot molds to office furniture. For 2 weeks, British Steel kept the blast furnaces and coke ovens hot. But the shadowy consortium failed to meet their conditions for buying the plant, and thousands of gallons of water drowned every last hope.
I feel very better, very, very better. I still wake up odd mornings and wonder what shift I'm on. You know. It's just gradually, slowly seeping through the hopelessness of it now. You know. I know the concert people, you know, they won't be crushed. They'll survive, but it's going to take a hell of a long time to get anywhere near the economy which we had here. You know, this is typical of these huge, mammoth organisations, faceless people hundreds of miles away are given a set of figures by so-called expert accountants, and they make a decision. If these people would only have the decency to come up and spend a week or two in concert and see what they have done, the damage they've perpetrated on this town, I think it would be a worthwhile exercise. Personally, I think I'd like to write a book just about what's happened to this town. I don't know if I have the ability, but I certainly have the time.
Time wasn't so plentiful for Tom and Mary Carney. On September the 28th, just a fortnight after being paid off, Tom prepared to leave home to become a student at Teesside Polytechnic, 40 miles away. With his redundancy money and a one-year grant from British Steel, he was aiming to take a BSc in social studies.
Me clock and me shaving gear.
How many clocks in the long haul?
With a little bit of luck, after 3 years I may come out with a degree. And hopefully with that, I'll be able to increase my job opportunities anyway.
It's going to be a new lifestyle for me, because he'll not be there when I have problems. And the children will miss him. But first, it'll just be Daddy's going to work.
Yeah, as formerly, I mean, you know, when your dad comes home, you heard the expression, well, your dad comes home. And that will be for 5 days a week anyway. I won't be home.
When the novelty wears off that he's away, I think I'll start to miss him then. And just having the children crying, because if the children start crying too much, Tom will take over while I have them all day and all night.
Well, it's going to be pretty difficult to cope with. I mean, I'm switching from an entirely one lifestyle to an entirely different lifestyle. I'm going to try and be an academic as opposed to a big, hairy steelworker. So how I can cope with the switch, well, it's up to me entirely. I just hope I can ease into the situation.
He was.
As one Carney left concert, another arrived. On October the 1st, economist John Carney, no relation to the ex-steelworkers family, took up a new post. First ever industrial development officer with Derwentshire District Council.
Within Derwentshire, the scale is to create something of the order of 7,000 new jobs over the next 5 years. And that's really to stand still. And Derwentshire at the moment, without really taking account of the steel redundancies, has the highest level of unemployment in the northern region.
Steelmaking was not the first major industry to die in Derwentshire. Since the 1960s, 16,000 coal mining jobs had disappeared. The last pit in the district was shut down in July 1980. With the concert works now closed and deserted, this scrap was destined for the furnaces of the Spanish steel industry.
We need to have 6 major, that is anything employing over 100 people in today's economic climate, 6 major projects within the next 12 months have got to be attracted to Derwentshire. And then we've got to keep that momentum up over the next 5 years. And that is extremely difficult.
What are the digits that get written down here, first of all?
While they were waiting for new jobs to materialize, more than 500 ex-steel workers went back to the classroom. The local technical college laid on courses on everything from basic maths to welding and catering.
You want to group all the P's together on the left-hand side and all the numbers on the right-hand side.
Altogether, about 1,000 took advantage of the redundancy agreement, whereby British Steel paid them for up to a year to undertake retraining.
Yeah. Because you've got the anti-log of 0.3 instead of the anti-log of 3.
Mind you, Jackie Jordan disagrees with me. Do you disagree, Jackie?
For the present, people tried not to think too hard about the future and its problems. Each work section threw its farewell fling, and most of the newly unemployed had a few £1,000s of severance and redundancy money in the bank.
At the present time, the atmosphere seems it's unreal. As far as I'm concerned, I was unfortunate in this respect that I was 65 on the 3rd of October, and it meant that the redundancy and severance passed me by. I have worked at BSC Concert for 29.5 years since I came home from sea, and it's sad in a way to think that this is actually the final session.
An awful lot more people are going to have to travel away from Concert for their job of employment. So obviously they're going to buy a brand new car. Our sales have increased dramatically. To put a figure on it, we were talking in the region of 90% over September last year. And of course this is continuing into early October as well. Anybody who's worked at the steelworks for anything between 10 and 30 years, I think to suddenly find that he's got £6,000–7,000 in his hand is entitled to a brand new motor car.
Well, bought a 3-piece suite, a new music centre, a bedroom suite and carpets and things like this that were needed, you know. I haven't wasted the money though.
I'm quite a little man.
Ken and Janice Hobson had both worked at British Steel. They spent some of their money on home comforts, since home was a place they'd be seeing a lot more of.
It goes to your head having money. Not to the point of being silly, but to the point that, well, ooh, you can't go out and afford that thing now, you know.
I know we've got a bit of money behind us now, but that's got to last us until I do find work. If I don't find work, we'll just have to live off the money we have in the bank. Which I don't like it. I'd rather be fetching a pay pack a day.
He's got another 25 years before retirement, and it's an awful thought to have no work for the next 25 years. I think it's demoralising to most men, and Ken just doesn't like being out of work, so therefore, naturally, it's bound to wear him down, you know.
Well, 40 is a bad age for getting work now, like. But I'm going to try. Definitely try.
You just have to live in hope. I think this is it.
The trauma of redundancy and the stress of trying to adapt to a new lifestyle 40 miles away from home was already having its effect on Tom Carney. Just 10 days after beginning his course at Teesside Polytechnic, he was rushed into hospital for an operation on a stomach ulcer.
I've never been in hospital before. This is the first time I've ever been in hospital.
Yeah, Mary.
Killed? I think the closure did have a lot to do with it. Brought a lot of distress, personal tension upon myself. I wasn't going to provide for my family. I believe that's the ulcer caused by tension. I mean, it was a bit strange swapping from my job in the steelworks and going down as a student.
I'll tell me, Mum, they were just rasping. I was thinking about it. My toes all want to curl up. Our brothers fell down the other day in Bangor, he said. They had burned a hand.
Sounds just like usual. It's a bit of a blow, this, you know. It's a bit of a setback when I should have been really trying to get into it. I'm going to be a late starter again. But it's late. Why do you leave the key with me?
I never thought of it. She says I could leave the key any time, but I never thought about it.
At the beginning of December, Concert's unemployment figures were the worst in Britain. 1 man in 4 was now on the dole. But people were determined not to let it spoil their Christmas.
Well, we've all decided that it could be the last good Christmas we're going to have, so we're going to have a good one. We always do have a canny time at Christmas, but I think it's exceptionally good this year. We thought we'd give the children as much as we can without being too daft. But, as I say, they may not get it next year. So we're doing our best this year.
On December the 15th, a special present for Martin Carney. His daughter-in-law, Anne, gave him his 4th grandchild, Rebecca.
What are you getting for Christmas, but new front teeth?
But one present no one was giving away was jobs.
When you consider what some of the lads did not so long ago, they hired a 12-seater bus and they went down to Leeds because they heard about a factory down there that was employing people. The pastor got interviews, but when they filled in their application forms and they found out they came from Concert, they were told to go back over the mountains, that the works down in Leeds were for people at Leeds and not for people from Concert.
In the new year, another blow. The district's biggest remaining employer, Ransom Hoffman Pollard, closed its roller bearing works and made 1,250 redundant. The company transferred production to its other 3 factories farther south. Against the trend, 1 or 2 southern firms were moving to Derwentsside, but on a very different scale from the works that had closed.
We are looking for people with a high degree of training. It isn't an automated industry. It is old-fashioned skills, fitting and turning. And to my, I must be honest about this, amazement, one really didn't envisage a steelworks doing, having the sort of skills they do. You imagine them making great big huge blocks of steel. And one tends to ignore that logically they have to have complete support teams of skilled people keeping all the machinery working.
We've been used to big stuff, dirty stuff, and this is very small and very clean in comparison. first saw a drawing with 1.25 of a millimetre, I thought, good heavens, you know, I'll never manage it. But you find that you're doing that and putting holes through them too. We've had to come down quite a bit in salaries, but we're just starting, and we've been promised that as the business builds, so will our salary.
We moved up here with 6 people, and we have so far taken on 18. I don't envisage the company will ever be greater than 40.
One sure source of jobs, for a few years at least, would be the demolition of the steelworks. British Steel invited the first major tenders by the end of February.
I think we have to introduce ourselves as a group of 11 ex-steelworkers lately employed by the British Steel Corporation Concert Works, who decided to form, well, we have named ourselves and registered ourselves as the Concert Cooperative Enterprises.
The survivors of the Save Concert Committee were still trying to win jobs for the town. Their first bid for work couldn't have been more ironic.
Being realists, we know there are no production jobs left within those works, but there is work in dismantling it. And we've always said through the campaign we want work, so whatever kind of work it is, we'll be in for it.
But the cooperative's bid failed when the company with whom it made the joint tender went bankrupt. The new year certainly hadn't brought any change of fortune. Tom Carney was also finding that 1981 brought no better luck than before.
I started back to college probably for about a week. I had to go up and see the specialist, and he informed me that I had a hernia. And so I had to go return to hospital. But in the meantime, since that happened, I developed an internal abscess, which was a bit of an emergency job, and whipped me into Shotley Hospital and opened it up and drained it. Well, since then I've never been back to college. I've only been there for a week this year, really.
Medical news too for Mary Carney.
Well, just after Christmas, I wasn't feeling too well, and I guessed what was up. I went to the doctors and I found out I was pregnant. Well, I was over the moon. Then after a couple of weeks, I started to panic a bit because the children were really playing up. Tom was very disappointed. He didn't want any more. He thought 3 was enough. But a few of his friends were expecting as well, and I think they've been talking, and he's now turned and he's quite looking forward to it. People outside I speak to think I'm mad, but there again, children have got to be born. There's been worse times than this, I know there has, and I know we'll pull through.
Keith Joseph is willing to meet a delegation of senior stewards on your behalf for us to put you on.
Friday, the 13th of March, an unhappy anniversary. 6 months to the day after the last concert steel was made, Sir Keith Joseph paid a flying visit to Derwenside. The Secretary of State for Industry reviewed the efforts being made to replace 5,000 jobs that had disappeared since September.
There's no doubt that with a workforce with a fine reputation, with all the efforts now going in, that you can see visibly transforming the sea, new factories coming out of the ground, and a lot of interest in them. Everyone is surprised by how much interest there is in opening up here, and I reckon that once we get some new factories here, that will increase the pace at which others will come. There are fashions in these things. There are fashions. And once we get a few factories filled, others will come.
For the unemployed, the biggest problem at present was filling in time. Ken and Janice Hobson were finding it difficult.
I'm inclined to go to Newcastle a lot more than I ever did. I go out as much as I can. If not, I sit and read. I've read an awful lot lately, you know, more than I've ever done. But I think it's affecting Ken more than me, you know. He just doesn't seem to have as many hobbies as some men. He sits and mopes around the house a lot. I know it sounds awful, but at times he get a bit annoyed that he is in the house all the time, and then when he goes out, he play war because he's been out too long, you know.
Well, I'm hoping in the near future I will be working before the end of the year. I'm hoping to, because I'd rather be working than sitting in the house. I've always been used to working. I've been working, what, 24 years now, and this is the first time I've ever been out of work.
When we go to sign on the door, we'll walk up together and then we'll have a day in concert.
For some months, signing on the dole meant going back into the steelworks. An old canteen had been turned into an emergency annex to cope with the overflow.
You see on the news that there's maybe 80 jobs coming to concert, but there's 3,000 or 4,000 men out of work. You hope that your man's going to get one of them, but there again, you don't know.
The government's strength is based very much in the south of the country, in the sort of environment we're here in now. And I think, quite frankly, there's not only a massive indifference on the government side of the house, but an actual hostility towards places like Consett and the sort of people who exist in places like that. And in questions of trying to get the actual sort of help and succour which we needed in the area was quite frankly, very often like trying to get blood out of a stone.
Consett's MP, David Watkins, fighting for aid and understanding at Westminster. But male unemployment in London was only 1 in 14. By May, one Consett man in every 3 was jobless.
Isn't that on the board you've seen specifically that you're interested in?
No, not really, you know. I've looked around them all, like, but there's not really a fancy, you know. I don't fancy going abroad or anything like that, you know.
So most of the vacancies tend to be sort of part-time jobs or secretary or joiner, midwife. It's very little in the unskilled area.
For those with skills, there were opportunities to set up in business. BSc Industry offered advice and assistance. Harry Carr had been in middle management with British Steel. He and electrical engineer Bill Stevenson started their own lawnmower repair service in a converted BSc workshop. Others turned their hobbies to advantage. Bob Bewley had grown cacti in his spare time for 20 years. Now, with his redundancy money, he made a family business out of it.
Yeah, just those few left in the tray, that's all.
And some revived old skills, which were once again in demand.
I served my time as a cobbler. I left the trade because there was no future in it. The steelworks closed and I decided I would go back to it. It always has been a trade that's done well, you know, in bad times. People just can't afford to buy new shoes, so the cobbler's the nearest thing to it, isn't it?
The major contracts for demolishing sections of the steelworks had been given to companies from Hartlepool and Sheffield, and with summer, the work was going on rapidly. But these firms brought in a lot of their own labour, so the number of jobs for local people was limited. The ex-steelworkers cooperative had to be satisfied with occasional smaller jobs, like dismantling heating systems and electrical circuits. These gave work to only 3 or 4 of them for a few days at a time. It seemed symptomatic of what had happened to Consett over the past year. Only a minority, mainly older men like Martin Carney, had been able to come to terms with the changes.
Well, I'm very afraid to say I'm spending too much time in the pub, you know. I have an hour or 2 hours in an afternoon and again at night. Well, I've got to be honest and say that really I'm kind of enjoying it. From my own personal viewpoint, naturally I'm not too happy for the other people that ought to be at work. It doesn't matter when you go up or where you go, there's always throngs of them walking around.
The last remaining fragment of British steel production in Consett was the Templetown Brickworks of BSC Refractories Group. At one time, it employed 400. Now, it was down to 140. Janice Hobson was lucky enough to get a job working in the canteen. As with hundreds of families, this meant that at home, the parental roles were reversed.
As soon as she goes out, I'm up. We get the bairns prepared for school, give them the breakfast, set them out, and then I start doing the cleaning. Now I'm preparing meals, doing dishes, going up to the job centre as soon as anything in there. Just got to get used to these things.
Hello, son. Oh, that's funny. Is that what you're doing at school?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. We'll have to show your mummy that then, won't we?
I don't.
Well, he's moodier than he ever used to be. You kind of have to feel the air sometimes when you come in. Sometimes he can be as happy as Larry, and the next time he's, well, not bad-tempered, but touchy. Like coming out with something daft like saying, oh, well, I'm the breadwinner now, you know, or I'll have to go out and earn the money. When you go to camp and behave yourself, some days you can laugh at it, and other days, well, no, it's just not a joke.
Wisdom, get your tea now, come on.
We don't actually fight, but we shout a lot more than we ever did, you know. And I don't think the kids have any chance to make any real noise now.
Well, sometimes I could calm my temper, and sometimes I just blow up, that's it. I shout at the bairns, I go to bed crying, so...
Like everything else, when you sat in the house all day, you're thinking. And the fact that I'm now the worker, that doesn't help very much, you know.
The prices have gone up a lot, even since Mark was born. Little things like vests and bibs, they've gone up. And the baby's food is definitely gone up, but hopefully I'm going to try and feed the baby myself. That's my big worry, because if you don't manage to feed it myself, I'll have to go on to buy it, and that's very expensive. That really has gone up.
Yes, they're quite nice. Those are 90p.
Financially, I'm going to be in a bit of a pickle next year. I'm going to have to apply, I think, to the local education authority. The BSC promised to pay me for a year. Well, that's run out now.
People are saying spend, spend, spend and go on Social Security. But I say no, that we'll live on our own money as long as we can. You just find you have to cut down on things, like just like biscuits and luxuries you had. You get the basics in and that's it.
Back to basics. That's the order of the day now in Consett. On September the 10th, a second instalment of severance pay is due from British Steel. But anyone with more than £2,000 in savings can't claim supplementary benefit. So that won't last very long. The council is trying to change the town's image. They've spent £700,000 on a new bus station, but hard facts can't be glossed over. Although the walls are decorated with emblems of the town's steelmaking past, the roof is made of the finest Italian steel. 400 people are already in new jobs. More have been promised. But Industrial Officer John Carney knows what difficulties still lie ahead.
In the last 9 months, we've secured around 1,000 new jobs. And I would guess that in calendar year 81, we'll now be able to secure something of the order of 1,500 new jobs, so that we're on target. There is still a lot of unemployment in the pipeline. Unemployment in this area will probably top 10,000
before it starts to fall back.
What about the children of the 8,000 people in Derwentsside who are already on the dole? For 700 who left school in July, there are only 4 jobs on offer, not one in Consett itself. Of the giant steelworks, only 2 small buildings in one corner are to remain in production, taken over by medium-sized engineering companies. Over the next 5 years, the rest of the 700-acre site will be demolished, levelled and landscaped. By 1986, hardly a trace will remain to show the world what was once done here. Consett will become a greener, pleasanter place to live. But for many of its 30,000 people, 1986 may be too late.
We always said we'd never move away. But in this last year, I think if we did find a job, we would move away.
Hopefully I'll complete my course and perhaps get a degree. And then I'll be looking for some sort of secure employment. Whether that's possible nowadays, I don't know. But I think I'll be... that's my goal anyway, that's what I'm aiming towards.
Very well, Tom fancies moving away, but personally I don't. I want to stop in Consett and try and make a life in Consett. That's where I was brought up and that's where I want to stay, you know.
I don't think Consett will ever be the same, because where there was one person in each household, possibly more, working at the company, everyone knew everyone else. But they're all moving to different areas and different jobs now, that you're going to lose that friendship that used to be.
It breaks my heart when I come over the top of the hill there. You know, you've been away anyway, you come back, you always saw the works and your home. And now you come over there, it's just a big black mark where that hub of industry was, you know. Very sad. However, that's the way it goes, isn't it?